The City of Charlottesville has an emission reduction plan that looks for eliminating emissions by 2050.
Big picture, it's transitioning our bus system to a zero-emission fleet by 2040, which is 10 years ahead of our Climate Action Plan's goal of zero emissions by 2050.
We know that our emissions come from key sectors in the community, with transportation being one of those key sectors. The city can't control and mandate what happens across the transportation sector in the entire community, but we do have the opportunity to make some really strategic decisions in the fleets that we own and operate. And so the buses, the transit system making this decision is entirely informed by and aligned with those climate goals.
We see the climate change is very evident in our everyday life. And so Charlottesville, we wanted to do everything that we could to have our impact on it. And for us, this is something that we had control over. And so we wanted to do everything we can as a city council, working with our staff and mainly the public and organizations like C3 to make this possible.
We looked at whether we were going to be able to run service reliably. That was the key thing that we were looking at. We wanted to make sure that we could transition, but we wanted to make sure we did so in a way that didn't require an overwhelming capital investment that we weren't going to be able to be prepared to make. We also wanted to be able to make sure we were making investments in technologies that were going to be reliable and weren't going to break down, because we needed to make sure that we had buses that could run service. We looked at everything on the table, and at the end came down to two different sources that we want to pilot, including battery electric and hydrogen.
It wouldn't have been possible without federal money available because the infrastructure for either hydrogen or battery electric buses is a large upfront cost, which would be a lot for the city on its own to figure out. But knowing that there were billions of dollars available from the federal government for zero emissions vehicles, I think gave both city council and staff the confidence that this is actually feasible for localities to do now.
The Inflation Reduction Act is certainly a big player in what we hear is on the horizon. We're not ready to apply for a particular funding opportunity today, but as the planning gets underway and we have a clearer picture of the infrastructure needs, we'll definitely be looking at grant opportunities. We believe strongly that it is not appropriate to ask the community to make these kinds of changes if we're not doing them in our own operations and within our own control and making the financial decisions that go with it.
Being able to save money on fuel costs, if you're not having to buy natural gas or diesel fuel. I think there's also going to be an economic benefit in terms of reducing pollution from tailpipe emissions. I think is going to have a positive health impact on the overall Charlottesville community that'll have a long-term economic impact as well.
Charlottesville has always been in the forefront of issues like this, and we're not going to change, and we're glad that we can be the shining example to other localities, not only in the great Commonwealth of Virginia, but in the entire nation, because this air that we breathe just doesn't stay here in the city of Charlottesville. We all have to breathe this beautiful air.